Welcome to Arabs in Media. Please sign up on our free Substack at Arabs in Media. Arabs in Media is where we try to break down overall themes of how Arabs are featured in news, media, and entertainment. So for today's episode, we're going to do a follow-up on the Substack article of the refugee camp bombing in Rafah. And also, because I can say most networks won't tell you this story, we're going to give you the story of Ahmed Al Najjar. He is a name you should remember. In the news, Green Party candidate Jill Stein has approached the mayor of Dearborn, Michigan, to potentially be her running mate as vice president. Mayor Abdullah Hammoud unfortunately just misses the age cutoff to be her running mate in time for the election, but he's been looked at for other roles in the campaign. Hammoud is Lebanese American. He is the mayor of the town in the U.S. with the largest Arab population in the U.S. Dearborn is home to a diverse Arab American population and some of the best Arabic food you've ever had in your life, including the best sammoun, which is an Iraqi bread. It's shaped like a diamond. It's kind of like a pita, but it's not. My last trip through there not too long ago, road tripping for a couple of reasons, but I bought 60 loaves of this bread. I think I have one left in the freezer. It is June, Pride Month in the U.S., celebrating LGBTQ people and acknowledging their struggles for legal protections and dignity and equality in society. It is also a month when a lot of pinkwashing emerges in media coverage. And if you've ever heard the phrase or something like, they would kill you in Gaza for being gay, that is pinkwashing. It's exploiting sexual minorities' struggles to make you distracted from racist behavior, ethnic cleansing, apartheid, and genocide. So the right answer, if somebody tells you that, they would kill you in Gaza for being gay, is to say something along the likes of, I think Israel and the U.S. are doing a pretty good job of killing them right now. In fact, if you look at the numbers, the data, let's say we take the conservative estimates from science on the incidence of gay or queer individuals in humanity. On the low end, that number is going to range around 2.5%. That's a very low and conservative end. And for example, also in the U.S., I think during the Kinsey report, the original estimates from the 1950s study on human sexuality was around 10%. So those numbers have kind of varied based on studies, right? Then when you look at self-reported numbers, some research polls, Pew numbers over the last few years have made that number in the U.S., self-reported LGBTQ identity, is as high as 7%. So just averaging out the math, that means that Israel has killed between 1,000 and 2,800 LGBTQ people since October 7th with American weapons. So it means that we've killed more queer people than any other Arab country in that period of time. Now, it doesn't mean that we can't have dialogue and reform and improve LGBTQ standing in Middle Eastern countries, but just don't fall for the notion that somebody is superior because they have a pride parade when people are being killed in a massacre. I want to throw out a shout out to Kehlani, the artist, Kehlani, if you're not familiar with them. They released a single called Next to You, which features Kehlani and their dancers wearing keffiyeh-themed outfits showing the Palestinian flag. It is not just fly-by-night. Kehlani has been a vocal and outspoken artist, one of the few, calling out the genocide in Gaza. And true to their word, 100% of the proceeds will be distributed amongst Palestinian, Congolese, and Sudanese families through Operation Olive Branch. And also in the entertainment world, according to Billboard magazine, Macklemore's single Hins Hall appeared at number 2 on the rap digital song sales charts and has earned over 173 million views on Instagram. Macklemore, of course, has been a social justice advocate for many years of his career, including LGBTQ rights, and he is donating proceeds from that song to UNRWA. This is actually one of those examples through music where I feel like we've got some hope ahead of us because, ultimately the music business and politicians are very focused on profits and power. And eventually there will be a full-scale realization that Arab issues, humanitarian issues, Palestine, Gaza, Arab media presence, all of these things will come down to an understanding that they are a market and a voter bloc. That's why there's kind of such a freak out and change happening to norms right now. Finally, imagine you are a nurse. Your specialty is labor and delivery. And you're recognized for an award for compassionate care for women who suffer a perinatal loss. And I'm referring to a woman named Hesen Jabr, who won this recognition for patient care in this really specialized role of bereavement care for pregnant women at NYU, New York University. I'm going to play the presentation of her award and her acceptance speech, and I want you to please pay close attention to each part of this, including the introductions to her. There's a lot of love and grace from the medical community who recognized her for this award, but I want you to hear the entire segment. It's only 2-3 minutes, but it's well worth it.
Now we're going to do the Sebastian Brun Compassionate Care Award. The award was established by the Brun family to honor the nurses who provided them with exceptional compassionate care after losing their baby, Sebastian. The award annually recognizes a nurse who is nominated by their peers for exemplifying compassionate care to patients and their families suffering a perinatal loss. So labor and delivery, come on up, Carrie Ann, Hesen, and Jenna.
And there's nothing more touching than when a patient suffers a loss and then comes back to bring their new baby into this world. That is something that resonates through our unit, and really we get through it by leaning on each other and leaning into the challenge. These two nurses embody that philosophy, and I am so proud to be here to present them with their awards. I am going to read just little excerpts from their recommendation was for Hesen. Hesen not only provides stellar patient care, but also provides support for the rest of the nursing staff so that we can all live up to her example. Hesen has been a valuable resource for me in navigating the logistics of bereavement care, which can be complicated. Most importantly, debriefing with Hesen has helped me process my own emotions about these difficult cases, which makes it easier to continue providing thoughtful, appropriate bereavement care. I'm so grateful to have had Hesen's support, and I hope you will agree that she is a perfect candidate to receive the Sebastian Brun Compassion Care Award. Again, I'm honored to work with both of you and truly think that you embody this award. So thank you for all that you do.
Good morning, everybody. It happens to be my birthday today, so thank you for kicking it off in a beautiful way. I'm also not a professional speaker, so I wrote a few things here from my heart. So I just wanted to take this moment to express my gratitude to my coworkers, first and foremost, who nominated me for the award. Truthfully, it does belong to all the nurses on labor who have held the hands of a grieving mother as she suffers one of the most devastating deviations from reality they could have ever imagined. The level of integrity, compassion, and humanity to be able to be present and comfort these patients as they navigate one of the most challenging times of their lives is something that really can't be put into words. And for that, I'm also grateful to my mother and my grandmothers who instilled these traits in me to earnestly and sincerely want to care for these patients and alleviate their pain during the most difficult time of their lives. As a Palestinian American Muslim woman in this country, I am proud to represent my mother's and my grandmother's upbringing through our traditions and customs, which oblige us to always hold space for warmth and compassion for all humans. It pains me to see the women from my country going through unimaginable losses themselves during the current genocide in Gaza. This award is deeply personal to me for those reasons. Even though I can't hold their hands and comfort them as they grieve their unborn children and the children they have lost during this genocide, I hope to keep making them proud as I keep representing them here at NYU. Thank you.
That's pretty amazing. If you've ever been to an award ceremony like that, it can get awkward or boring. That was compelling. Hesen claims that she's not, very experienced at being a public speaker, but let me tell you, she's got a future in it if she wants to, because that was pure, authentic heart and compassion. Just from a technical standpoint, she didn't center herself in it when she talked about Gaza. She centered the pain of women who have lost children during the genocide at the core of what ended up being very controversial. So here's what happened after the speech. Hesen came back to work shortly. She was pulled into a meeting with her president and vice president of nursing at NYU Langone. She was told in this meeting that she ruined the ceremony, offended people, and put others at risk because part of her speech was a tribute to grieving mothers in Gaza. She was sent back to work for the day, and at the end of her workday, brought back to another meeting, this time with HR, where they read aloud her termination letter and escorted her off premises by a plainclothes police officer. Let that sink in. She was fired after receiving an award for compassionate care of women who lose their child in delivery by saying it pains her to see women lose their children in delivery or otherwise in Gaza. This is going to be in a history book. Not just this case, but this era that we're going through. That the fact that we can't collectively have a reaction, that loss of humanity in this is awful across the board. The McCarthyism, the McCarthy-like era we are in is insane. If you are a mom who has received compassionate care from a nurse during labor, if you've had difficult childbirth, if you haven't, tell me this is okay. Tell me you are okay with this. In this era we are in, with McCarthy like everything, she's actually lucky that her escort was a plainclothes officer and not uniformed to make more of a point about her. Hey, don't speak up about a genocide or we're going to hustle you out of here in handcuffs. Even worse, all of the major media headlines did a huge disservice by leaving out the details of the award that she received and the work that she does out of the headlines. The Guardian: New York hospital fires nurse after calling Gaza war a genocide in her speech. No context. New York Post: New York's NYC nurse fired after calling Gaza war a genocide during award acceptance speech. No context. New York Times: NYU nurse is fired after calling the Gaza war a genocide in speech. See what they're doing here? They're leaving out what she won the award for because they want to isolate it as being something that sounds like an HR violation. She crossed the line, but they had the right to fire her because she called something out that she shouldn't have. Abstractly, like it fell out of the sky, like she was just at an award ceremony. She decided to yell genocide at the microphone. No, she was receiving an award for compassionate care and drew a parallel to the reason it resonated to her personally because of a real genocide and loss of life of babies and their mothers being killed. It goes on and on. I mean, Fox News, same thing. Reuters, same thing. The exception to the major news outlets on the headline is the Associated Press. So I want to call that out and give them props. Associated Press's headline, which should have modeled how others put their headlines together, was "A nurse honored for compassion is fired after referring to Gaza genocide in speech. Thank you, Associated Press. The world we're in. All right, I want to follow up to the Substack article of the refugee camp bombing in Rafah. And I can say, honestly, I don't think most networks in the US or the UK or English-speaking Western countries will tell you this story in this detail, perhaps, but we'll tell you the story of Ahmed Al Najjar. And this is a name that you should remember. Before I get into that, I just want to say that it was a rough week. Last weekend, my brother and sister-in-law and their kids came over for Memorial Weekend, and the kids are at a very precious age. And, you know, we came into the room where I record the podcast, and I have a console machine. It's called a Rodecaster, and it has these buttons on there where you can change your voice to a robot or a deep voice. So the kids were putting the headphones on and listening to themselves in the funny voices, and they were just cracking themselves up and having a great time. And it was a fantastic family hang. And I made the mistake of opening up my phone and seeing on Instagram the horror of Rafah. I mean, I was in disbelief for sure. Like, I couldn't wrap my head around what I was seeing because so many images have kind of melded together over the course of the last 8 months. And you don't know if you're seeing something that happened a few months ago or now, but I kept seeing that same video play over and over and over again as I was like scrolling through accounts. And I realized something really, really horrible had come through. And of course, we know now it was an Israeli airstrike on a refugee camp, on a safe zone, on a tent city. I think there were 45 or 50 confirmed dead, but there was also the image of a beheaded baby in this. And I don't think you can ever unsee something like that. Maybe you can over time unthink it or forget it on some level. But I can tell you that, you know, my anger and frustration and shock and numbness were too much for me to get on a microphone and try to walk through this, but writing felt just easier and a little bit better. So that's why, as I wrote in my Substack article, blah, 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 over and over and over again. So as I was paraphrasing the predictable world reactions, I said something to the effect of, you know, the world is an outcry, blah, blah, blah. You know, Netanyahu said, oops, we made a terrible mistake, blah, blah, blah. The White House was asked if this had crossed Biden's red line, which Biden had just put out days earlier, that Rafah was a red line. And they panicked and they said, well, we're not sure about it crossing Biden's red line because, of course, there is no red line. And they reaffirmed that. And the only thing I was wrong about was thinking that Biden would have gone on microphone and the next day to, you know, say something to the effect of, you know, the soul of America, we grieve with the families. And, you know, that would be the NPR soundbite for the top of the hour newscast for an entire day. But we didn't get that. You know, later in the week, Biden came out with a proposal for a temporary ceasefire so he can get elected, frankly. And presumably it's temporary because he wants to let the killing resume on some level. I mean, why else wouldn't you try to find a permanent ceasefire? And anyway, he phrased the proposal as if it was Israel's proposal, so it would force their hand, presumably. And of course, blah, 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 Netanyahu said no. Biden has commented, you know, that he thinks Netanyahu is prolonging the war to stay in power. You smelt it, dealt it. Of course, it's been rejected by Netanyahu because of a lot of things, including the fact that his right-wing government, A, will break up and he'll lose his coalition and he will go to jail for other unrelated items to the genocide. But B, I think his right-wing faction and he really enjoy killing Palestinians. And they've said horrible, extremist, genocidal statements to reaffirm that. And that's where we are. As we have progressed through the week, I saw an excellent feature by AJ Plus, the media outlet. And based on that, I really wanted to tell you about Ahmed Al Najjar. He's somebody that you should know. So last week in Gaza, before going out to play with his brothers, he asked his father for a shekel to buy some candy. So his dad gave him the shekel. He got a hug from his 18-month-old son. Ahmed's nickname to his dad is Baby. And Ahmed, in return, calls his father Baba Patata, or give me a potato. Ahmed has long curly hair. He looks like a young version of his brothers, Muhammad, Yaman, and Arkan. He loves playing with cats, playing on the trampoline. At 18 months old, he loves soccer. So this is kind of a worldwide thing, I think. You know, if you're not into soccer by the time you're a year and a half old, if not sooner, you're probably never going to be into soccer. Ahmed also loves his mother, Fatin, his sister Huda. And he and his family, who had been displaced from Khan Yunis, went to the designated safe zone in Rafah. So Ahmed gets the shekel from his dad. He goes and buys candy. Ahmed and his brothers, Yaman and Arkan, went to the park to play. And his other brothers, Muhammad and Yaman, went to play soccer somewhere else. And Muhammad and Yaman came back from the park when it was hit in an Israeli airstrike at the refugee camp, at the safe zone, at the tent city. There was an Israeli airstrike in the safe zone. So in the ensuing chaos and screaming and fire, Muhammad saw his brother Ahmed. They recognized him by his black pants and his orange shirt, but his body was separated from his leg and his head. The missile strike had decapitated their baby brother. I'm going to play a little bit of audio. I'm not going to translate it. I'll paraphrase that Muhammad goes on to say that he loves them all so much, all of them, because in this airstrike, his mother Fatin and sister Huda and another brother Arkan were also all killed and charred and burned alive in the attack on the civilian safe zone in the tent city. You see, this is real life for them. This isn't just the hashtag all eyes on Rafah. It is because one of the worst atrocities to humanity is playing out in front of us. Ahmed's survivors include his brother Yaman and his father Abdullah and his brother Muhammad.
طلب مني يومتها شيكل وقال لي تيتل فأنا أعطيته شيكل فأجا جراي هيك حضني فراح اشترى يعني ورجع على البركس هو وأركان راحوا.
كنا بنلعب كورة قبل المغرب ما يأذن ورجعت بعدها شوي على البركس وفجأة خبطوا البركس سمعت صراخ وبعدين شفت أخوي أحمد عباي البركس كانت راسه مقطوعة ورجله الشمال مقطوعة كان لابس بنطلون أسود وبلوزة برتقانية ما قدرتش أتحمل كيف إنه أشوف أخوي راسه مقطوع اشتقت لهم كلهم بدعي لهم لما اشتاق لهم بدعي الله يرحمهم يغفر لهم.
I swear that the rage and sadness and pain is only outdone by feeling crazy and lonely with these feelings sometimes. We just wrapped up National Mental Health Awareness Month, and you wonder, are we sick because we see this? And we still can't all agree that killing children is always bad? I really hope that your mental health is okay. I realized this week that all of the reasons that led me to doing this podcast were ultimately about my mental health. Keeping this all inside it can make you feel lonely and crazy. But besides being myself, seeing the genocide in Gaza, but also the triggers to the same feelings I had during the wars in Iraq. I've gone over this in some of my intro segments in prior episodes. We've done my intros before, but if you're new here, that's who I am. I'm an Iraqi American, and the rhetoric that came out after October 7th, the shock of the whole event, the bombing campaigns made me wake up to a central idea, which is we have a humanity problem. And part of that problem is seeing Arabs, not just Palestinians, but Arabs across the world as being subhuman, and that it's acceptable to use passive language, to dehumanize us in news coverage, to avoid key facts, to fully humanize us. It can be really overt, like in how news media languages Arabs or languages a nurse hired for compassionate care speaking up for compassionate care and getting fired for it because she used the word Gaza. There are a lot of really fascinating Arabs in the arts, in humanities, in medicine, in comedy. We have a rich culture to not only share with the world, but also to learn ourselves, including me. I mean, we're starting at this point here where we're calling out the dehumanization, but we're headed over there, and I'm pointing to the sky. We're headed to a better place where this understanding of us, of being funny or talented or smart or intelligent, we're just like every other human on the planet, but what we're not is garbage. What we're not is subhuman. And what we are is a market and a voting bloc, among many other things. We're wonderful, really. We're lovely. We make great Samoon. All right, that's it for now. Remember, killing kids is always wrong. Stop the genocide, Habibi. And thanks for listening to Arabs in Media. I'm Hazem Jamal. We'll see you next time.